So we got some wild new information here from Li Fong of The Intercept. He says, new piece from the Twitter files, how the pharmaceutical industry lobbied social media to shape content around vaccine policy. The push included direct pressure from Pfizer to partner BioNTech to censor activists demanding low-cost generic vaccines for low-income countries. Whoa. So, I don't know how many of you guys remember this, but there was a big fight going on after the vaccine came out, where a lot of pressure was being put on the Biden administration to lift the patent protections that the pharmaceutical companies have for their COVID vaccine. Now, in other words, the law is these companies have the right to say, we're not going to share our recipe, our ingredients for our vaccine, the way we make it, the formula, with anybody else. So countries that don't have it, well, sorry, you're out of luck. And the argument from like basically everybody, not just public health activists, is like, that's like sort of genocidal. So we have this thing which massively helps reduce the severity of the symptoms of COVID and could save many, many lives. In fact, a study came out, about 3 million lives in the US alone were saved by the vaccine. And you just don't want to give it to developing countries that maybe don't have the infrastructure or the ability to sort of figure it out on their own, don't have the research capacity, etc. And so it's literally an example of corporate profits being put, in no uncertain terms, unambiguously, above literal lives of human beings in the developing world. And so it's wild, but clearly the pharmaceutical industry was prodding Twitter to ban activists arguing, hey, give your formula to the developing countries, to generic pharmaceutical companies, so they can use your recipe and make it and save lives. Astonishing. Now, by the way, just so everybody understands, like, there's a lot of vaccine conspiracy theories out there, a lot of vaccine skeptics out there, and none of them talked about this at the time, that the real conspiracy was trying to withhold the vaccine from the developing world, leading to probably millions more deaths. So they inverted the conspiracy. That was just infuriating. Anyway, he continues here. In 2020, it was clear that the pandemic would require rapid innovation. Early on, there was a push to make the solution equitable, an international partnership to share ideas, technology, new forms of medicine to rapidly solve this crisis. But global drug giants saw the crisis as an opportunity for unprecedented profit. Behind closed doors, pharma launched a massive lobbying blitz to crush any effort to share patents and IP for new COVID-related medicine, including therapeutics and vaccines. So they did it with therapeutics as well. Bio, the lobby group that represents biopharma, including Moderna and Pfizer, wrote to the newly elected Biden administration demanding the U.S. government sanction any country attempting to violate patent rights and create generic low-cost COVID medicines or vaccines. Okay, that is just flat out evil, man. That's just flat out evil. And by the way, time for, my go-to rant on this topic. I can't believe anybody would be against nationalizing Big Pharma. They're a mafia. They're a gang. They don't even do the research and development that gets us the new medicine, just so everybody understands. Every new drug within the past 2 decades was made with government grant money at universities. So our tax money funds the development of new drugs, and then these companies swoop in, buy up the patent rights, and sell it back to us and price gouge us in the process. Why should they exist? There is no reason for them to exist. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't other areas where, the profit motive makes sense and competition gives us better results, but this is just not one of them. This is, file this under the same category as like fire department or police department. Nobody wants private, firemen. So if your neighbor's house is burning down, yours might burn down too because your neighbor didn't pay the private fire department. I mean, that makes no sense. You want like mercenary armies, like private militaries? That's chaos. That's mayhem. You can't have that system be private and for profit. Same thing with Big Pharma. It has never, ever, ever been more clear than this. He continues. That brings us to Twitter. The global lobbying blitz includes direct pressure on social media. BioNTech, which developed Pfizer's vaccine, reached out to Twitter to request that Twitter directly censor users tweeting at them to ask for generic low-cost vaccines. This is like Satan couldn't come up with a more evil plan than this. It's astonishing. And this is the world we live in. Unbelievable. Twitter's reps responded quickly to the pharma request, which was also backed by the German government. A lobbyist in Europe asked the content moderation team to monitor the accounts of Pfizer, AstraZeneca, and of activist hashtags like People's Vaccine. The potential fake accounts that Twitter monitored for protesting Pfizer, these were real people. Here's one the Twitter team flagged for potential terms of use violations. I talked to Terry, a 74-year-old retired bricklayer in the UK, on the phone. So this guy is tweeting, hey, people in poor countries are going to miss out on the COVID-19 vaccine. And then he tweets at the companies and says, we need a people's vaccine. Basically, don't be rapacious, patent sharks here. They wanted him banned. And of course, they made the bogus claim. Anybody who has this position and is tweeting about it, they're like bots and stuff, bro. What? So the anti-genocidal position, if you care about it and you talk about it, you're just a bot and stuff, bro. Unbelievable. Lee says, it's not clear what actions Twitter ultimately took on this particular request. Several Twitter employees noted in subsequent messages that none of this activism constituted abuse, but the company continued monitoring tweets. In a separate push, Pfizer and Moderna's lobbying group, Bio, fully funded a special content moderation campaign designed by a contractor called Public Good Projects, which worked with Twitter to set content moderation rules around COVID misinformation. Bio provided $1.2 million to the campaign, part of which is revealed through tax forms. The PGP campaign, called Stronger, helped Twitter create content moderation bots, select which public health accounts got verification, helped crowdsource content takeover. So, Pharma funding Twitter, Pharma asking for specific policy changes on Twitter. Unbelievable. Now, again, Lee points out here, it's not clear if Twitter actually banned any of the accounts or were pushing for the people's vaccine or whatever. So it may be an instance on that particular issue where it's like, okay, good. Like they did the right thing. Like, for example, when the DNC and Biden staffers were trying to get like anti-Biden parody tweets removed, Twitter was like, piss off. No, they're like, this is clearly a joke. So sometimes they did the right thing. But, the issue here is all of this pressure and this money trying to buy influence from big pharma, that's a huge problem. And it's a problem when people in the government try to prod Twitter to go in one direction or another. Like, it's a serious issue. So people with power are trying to silence their critics effectively. Lee says many of the tweets the bio-funded campaign focused on were truly unhinged misinformation, like claims that vaccines include microchips, but others stronger lobbied Twitter on were more of a gray area, like vaccine passports and vaccine mandates, policies that coerce vaccination. Okay, so what he's saying here is, some of the tweets that, Twitter was being asked to take action on, and maybe they did remove them in some instances, were insane conspiracies about there's a microchip in the vaccine. And that's untrue. It is flat out misinformation. I mean, maybe somebody's dumb enough to believe it, so they're saying it in earnest, but plenty of people, didn't believe it, and they said it because they're trying to build their own counter-narrative and they're conspiracy theorists or whatever. But in those instances, it's like, look, certainly more debatable, right? What approach Twitter should take. Now, me personally, you guys know, and I have the list of things that aren't allowed is basically like the illegal things plus doxing, and being a total idiot and a conspiracy theorist does not really cross that line to me. So me personally, I lean more on the side of, hey, let them say what they're going to say, even if it's insane. But at least I'll grant you that, like, there is a reasonable debate to be had about that. But then you can see it gets into the area of, like, vaccine passports and vaccine mandates. And it's like, number one, that's not in the same category as, like, lying or being super ignorant and saying a microchip's in the vaccine. And number two, like, these are certainly debatable issues, right? Like, I was never in favor of a hard vaccine mandate. Does that mean I'm, like, pushing COVID misinformation? That's absurd. No, I like the idea of, like, either you get vaccinated or you get tested. It's a way to sort of, like, protect the community during the peak of the pandemic. But like, so if people are questioning mandates or a vaccine passport, that's not allowed or that's subject to review. And it just, you can see like the slippery slope and the mission creep in real time. And that's disturbing. The Moderna Pfizer-funded campaign included direct regular emails with lists of tweets to take down and others to verify. Jesus Christ, that's dark. Here's an example of those types of emails that went straight to Twitter's lobbyists and content moderators. Many focus on Zero Hedge, which was suspended. So Zero Hedge is sort of like a news website, but they kind of play loose with the facts. They're not the best. Every now and then they have something that's correct, but a lot of the times they don't. And so they sort of focused on them because they were, I think, leaning heavy into like the COVID misinformation stuff. But again, it's like, I'm sorry, but it's within the realm of debatable opinions. You know what I mean? Like, I could disagree with somebody 100%, but you can't just knock them out of the public discourse because you see the slippery slope in real time. It's like, okay, we're going to crack down on conspiracy theories. At a time, I think they did it on QAnon, or was it Facebook that did it on QAnon? And it's like, okay, but then what about like the JFK conspiracy? A majority of Americans think there was a conspiracy to kill JFK. Now that's the fringe, in polite society, among these like official circles, that's the fringe position. That's the conspiracy theory. And it's like, where do you draw the line, right? So this is a problem. I mean, having Pfizer emails going to Twitter and them saying, hey, take a look at these tweets. That's not. Even if we look at the way Twitter acted, and in a majority of cases, they did what I would think is the more reasonable thing. Like, yeah, you got to let this one go. It's free speech, etc. It's like the way the system is set up here is a problem. It's a problem. There shouldn't be this pressure from pharma and pressure from governments. And anyway. Notably, this massive push to censor and label COVID misinfo never applied to drug companies. Wow. When Big Pharma wildly exaggerated the risks of creating low-cost generic COVID vaccines, Stronger did nothing. The rules applied only to critics of the industry. Boom. Now, this is a super important point. So, in other words, yeah, pharma companies pushed misinformation, health misinformation regarding COVID. So they tried to fearmonger about the generic vaccines, and they acted like these things wouldn't be safe. That's why we're against it, just to protect people's health and safety. It's not because of our profit motive that we're against it. So they would lie, mislead people on generic vaccines, and wow, would you look at that? COVID misinformation never cut in the direction of, hey, that should be banned. So it was coming from a quote-unquote official source. It's like if CNN or MSNBC or Fox News says something that's wildly inaccurate, there's no punishment for that. There's no consequences for that. Think about it in the context of YouTube. They're authoritative news. So even if they have a video that's demonstrably untrue, that'll get pushed in the algorithm, whereas I could say something that is true and the algorithm doesn't move it around like it should. So anyway, we don't need to go on here, but fantastic reporting here from Lee. Look, the difference is Lee Fong has been sort of doing Twitter file stuff on his own terms, doing his own keyword searches and finding important information. We learned from him the way that the U.S. government was trying to crack down on debate around Iran. If somebody's more on the side of get back in the Iran deal and, hey, we shouldn't go to war with them, they try to crack down on those tweets. Saudi Arabia and Yemen, they try to crack down on, like, people saying, hey, Saudi Arabia shouldn't be doing this. So Lee's been doing some great reporting. We covered that piece recently. And he's handled the Twitter files, I think, the best of anybody. I think when it comes to Taibbi, there was some pretty good information in there that's important, and, I'm happy he released it. But there's also stuff that's missing, like in the very first batch, he said, it was about the Hunter Biden thing, and they showed, oh my God, the Biden's team tried to get the Hunter Biden stuff taken down, but then you saw the specifics, and it was literally all like revenge porn of Hunter. But he had a tweet there that said, oh, by the way, the Trump White House was also getting stuff removed or trying to get stuff removed. And like, they just glossed over that. And so it's like, wait, hold on. I want to know more about that. That's the president that has actual First Amendment concerns. And we didn't get much on it. So you got the sense that like Elon Musk was sort of feeding the exact things he wanted to come out, which is, happy some of the stuff is coming out, but like all of it should come out. I'd love to see Twitter files on what Elon has done so far since he's been in power. The banning of not just the Elon Jet account, but all the journalists who reported on that, like, that's psycho, and that's deeply authoritarian and anti-free speech, and that we're not going to get anything on. And so it's like, okay, well, then you're just sort of doing his bidding if you just run with the narrative he wants you to run with. But Lee has done a fantastic job of, sort of sticking to his journalistic principles and releasing stuff that's super duper important that there aren't many other journalists who would sort of know what keywords to look for and what narratives to look for. And I think Lee's done a phenomenal job doing it. And this is a super, super important piece. Ever since Adpocalypse, when YouTube defunded all independent news and politics overnight, we haven't trusted them. We know they can pull the rug out from underneath us at any time. If you enjoy this content, please consider tipping $1 or $2 per month on the Secular Talk Patreon. Link in the video description box below. Thanks for your support.